I get nervous when you look lost. Welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, and we are not lost. We have been found. Unfortunately, some people are being found that don't want to be found. We're going to talk about an Apple product gone bad. We have an article coming out at NorthcentralPa.com about it. Maybe we'll talk around the globe. Obviously, some stuff going on with the Olympics, some stuff going on with Ukraine and Russia. It seems like things around the globe are picking up steam feverishly. And then we have a sports debate for the end. Also, happy birthday to my dad as well. Before we get to all of that, that blank stare that you see looking down, just so everyone,
I have a question.
Just so everyone knows, you are holding a phone. I don't want people to just think you're blank.
I'm not just like dozed off.
Yes.
So you're an English guy.
Yeah.
How do you spell shillelagh?
What is a shillelagh? Is a better?
Oh, it's like, isn't it like the big Irish club that you?
Oh, I'm Polish, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
You never heard that word?
A shillelagh.
I'm trying to spell it in a text.
Yeah.
And I can't even get close enough that I keep getting the red line, but it keeps saying no suggestion.
Okay.
So
Hi, John.
maybe you never heard that someone got shillelagh'd?
I've never heard that before in my life. Shillelagh. I'm not sure.
I think it's either Irish or Scottish. I think it's one of those.
You think it's one of those. If you know how to spell shillelagh, let Mark know so we can finish his text and we can start the show now.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
In order to start the show, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Right now, I'm feeling when there is something humbling when you think you're intelligent and you can't get the word close enough that the red line doesn't help you.
But okay. How many people do you think relate that to being able to spell stuff? I don't think spelling shows how intelligent you are. That's my opinion.
Right now, I feel pretty dumb because I can't come close enough to shillelagh.
I mean, there is a whole faction of people now that don't know how to spell anything. They just get it close enough, and then it autocorrects for them.
But I'm in the faction of people that doesn't get it close enough because I can't get close enough.
Yeah, but it's shillelagh.
Shillelagh.
I mean, couldn't I argue that might even be like a different language?
Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't. I know it's like Scottish or one of those. I don't know. Somebody knows, but yeah. Right now, I'm not coming close.
No.
And I feel a little less than.
Do you feel inadequate?
I do. I do. And now I'm dying to know what the answer is, and I'm not going to Google it because we're in the middle of the show.
Spring says shillelagh is S-H-I.
Oh, see, let me just
L-A-G-H. Shillelagh.
Well, okay, first of all, let me just.
Here's a better question. Are you saying it right? Shillelagh.
Shillelagh.
That looks
first of all,
that looks like shillelagh to me. Shillelagh. Shillelagh. I don't know if you have it right or not. Spring says it's Irish. Yes, I agree. It's definitely Irish. Do I need to go back for you? You're actually doing this live on the air. This is why people come to watch. Good thing you don't play Wordle. If you played Wordle, we'd be in real trouble.
Okay, and I'll just say, I tried S-H and S-H-A and S-H-E. Okay. I did not go to S-H-I. I would not have gone to shillelagh. I thought it was shillelagh. I didn't think it was shillelagh.
Okay. No, that's fair.
But yeah, so there you go.
I don't judge you based off of your spelling, unlike you, who judges the rest of us if we don't know how to spell something.
That's not true. I'm not. My spelling is improved. So is my grammar, but I still.
Let's go to this. We have a story coming out about it later today on NorthcentralPa.com. A lot of different ways to talk about this one because I don't know about you, like friend shaming. Some of my friends get shamed for not having an Apple phone. Are you aware of this being a thing?
See, no, I always just thought, I mean, there's Apples and there's Androids and people just like it's like Coke and Pepsi.
Yes. So
I never thought there was something to be shamed.
So here's what happens. Cause I have had Android phones in the past. I'm now shifted more towards Apple. It's just easier for my lifestyle with the iPad and everything else. It just all works together. However, if you're in a group of friends, majority of them have an Apple product. If you are the odd one out, you really kind of throw things out of whack. There's certain things you just can't do with like the group messages and the FaceTiming and all this stuff if you have one non-Apple product user in the group. However, this has backfired a little bit. One of Apple's newest products, the AirTag. Do you know what an AirTag is?
I do not.
So imagine something that is the size of about a quarter.
Okay.
And it's just kind of white, it's round, and essentially you can attach it to items that you don't want to lose. And essentially it's a tracking device for those items. So you can attach it to your car keys, you can put it on your purse, anything. And then if you lose it, you get on your phone, you can see where it is, and then you can find your car keys or whatever it is you're missing. Of course,
which is a great idea.
It's a great idea until
in principle.
Not. Yes, until it's not. It's a great idea until you realize that people can be using it for other things. So one of the things that I believe is going to be in the story we're running is how thieves, stalkers, all these different people are actually using the AirTags as almost like cheap, easy to use tracking devices that link right to your phone very, very easily, very like accurately. And so what people are doing is they're dropping these into people's shopping bags. They're dropping these into purses if they want to stalk the person. It's really kind of creepy how this one product that, like you said, seems like such a great idea. But once you start reverse engineering it and you start looking at it from the negative side, it's a horrific idea.
Well, you could, I'm guessing you could attach it to people's cars like a low jack. Yeah, you're right. It is a wonderful idea when it was used the way it was designed to be used.
Yeah.
It is a bad idea for people that want to use it in bad ways.
Yeah, and it's almost scary.
It's dangerous and scary, yes.
It is. And especially in like when you think of the people who are using this, and I don't know, like when you have headphones, you can connect to other people's headphones, you can connect to other people's Bluetooth spots. Like it doesn't even necessarily have to be your AirTag. So while I was looking up and digging into some of this, you can actually, if you're smart enough and you can crack it, you can actually like attach on to somebody else's AirTag if you are smart enough and sophisticated enough and you know what you're
doing. If somebody does it with their keys or with their wallet, then you can basically track wherever their keys and their wallet are.
Yeah.
And their keys and their wallet are always with them.
If you're good enough at hacking and you're good enough with Apple products, you don't even need to buy the AirTags. Essentially what you're doing is you're just searching for the AirTags that are around you and then hacking into them and getting it. So essentially what you've done is for somebody who's a very good hacker, you have essentially put tracking devices on all the valuable items around you that they now have, if they're smart enough, if they're good enough, they now have access to.
Yeah. So what's
kind of crazy.
Yes. So if you did have one and you have it on your keys, then just go back to the old days and just when you lose your keys, just tear the house apart like the rest of us do.
Yes. Flip over the couch cushions. Look under the rugs.
When you are you one of these people that put their keys in the same spot every time so you never lose them?
So I'll try to answer this as quickly as possible because I know you have a point. I am somebody. Everything has a place, and I don't even think it's OCD. I think it's the only way I can be somewhat organized.
Okay.
So my idea of organization is I'm too dumb to memorize things. So this is the spot. Like it has to go there. So my keys, my wallet, like I don't know if you've noticed, like my stuff on my desk, like systematically goes to a spot.
And you're saying my desk isn't like that.
It does not. But again, that's because it's not because I'm saying like you're cleaner, I'm cleaner. What I'm saying is like I'm too dumb to memorize it. So yes, my car keys go in a spot every time.
What's funny is I had one house in my life that was like that. Okay. I had when I lived in my brother when we had a townhouse in Baltimore when he was first pitching with the Orioles. You had to lock the deadbolt because of course we were in suburbia Baltimore. So being the Montoursville kid, I was scared to death, even though it was a really nice neighborhood. So you lock the deadbolt with your keys, and so you get inside, you'd lock the door, you'd relock the door. And then I would take the keys and I would throw them on the floor under this table that was in the
Yep.
And that's where they were. And then people would come, they're like, why are your keys on the floor? I was like, because that's where they always are. Because I always know, I would just lock it, throw them on the floor, under the table. But everywhere else in life, I don't. So once a month, I'm the guy running through, like, where are my keys? And I leave them in the car. What coat did I wear last? And the funny, for people like me who struggle with this, you'll end up looking in the same spot like 3 or 4 times. Like they should be here. This is where they are a lot. Or you check your coat pockets. You still can't find them. You check your coat pockets again. And then after you do it, like you check your coat pockets a second time, you're like, I rechecked there once. Why would I think they're how did they magically appear now? But that's when you run out of logical places to look, you start rechecking the logical places and then you feel even dumber.
So here, this it's so funny you said that, because my issue is I almost don't need the AirTags. Like I would never need to do it because like I just go to the spot where this stuff has to be. The problem with that is like once every 3 months they're not there, and I don't know what to do. So like this whole like retracing
your girlfriend.
Well, so it's hilarious because people like retrace your steps, like look here, look there, and for me it's like no, they have to be there.
They're supposed to be.
So what happens is I get a mental block. Like I don't even know how to retrace my steps or begin to like try to, because for me it's just like this is where it has to be, and if they are not there, then they don't exist. And so I'm really bad at searching and looking for the things that I have lost. Really.
And I just said this to someone in the office the other day. I have this, there's always this calming where I'm like, I look outside, okay, the car is here. The car got here, so the keys are close.
That's your first thought when you can't find your keys?
It's not my first one. Okay. But after a while, when I'm like, well, the keys have to be here somewhere because the car got here.
I thought that your first thought was like, well, is the car here?
No, it's not the first one.
Okay.
The first thought is, well, they're not here. Maybe they're here. Maybe they're here. Maybe they're... But then after a while, it is comforting to know.
This is the other one, and I've had people make fun of me for this, like roommates and like past people I've lived with. I have stuff that never leaves my coat or jacket pockets. Like essentially, the pockets are where they exist. So one of like, for me, I know. So like, I'll hang up my coat on the door, and my wallet will stay in the coat.
What if you wear a different coat next time?
It's just one coat. You have one winter coat. Do you wear multiple winter coats?
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing. So like, let's say I'm in the house and I have to use the wallet. That's the spot. So I will go, I will get it, I will use it, and then immediately return it. So essentially, like I use the coat pockets as shelves.
See, now
they are where I
don't like to keep my wallet in a coat pocket unless the pocket zippers.
Okay.
Because I feel like it could fall out of that easier than falling out of my pants pocket.
Interesting.
I don't
like the pants pocket because I don't notice it. The coat pocket I notice.
Oh, I know.
My hands are in it. Like I'm checking it. I put stuff in my pants pocket, and 2 years later, like found like a cough. Like I never feel stuff in my pants pocket.
Really?
Ever.
See, now I'm one of these people too, and I have a buddy who's like this. Like if I'm sitting somewhere, I'll just all of a sudden I'll do the random, like, there's my keys, there's my wallet.
Okay.
And he used to make fun of me. We'd be like at a baseball game and, whatever. And like every inning or whatever. And there's no pattern to it. But every now and then I just check. Because have you ever done this? Have you ever been frantically searching for your phone while you're on it?
No, I've never done that. Have you ever lost your sunglasses while they're on your head?
No, I don't think I've ever done that.
Never done that.
You've had that?
One time they were like up here. And I was like, I could not find these sunglasses. And then after like 2 minutes, it was like,
no, because I'm like keys, wallet, phone. That's kind of my thing when I'm out.
I think most of us.
And there'll be times that I will be on my phone because now with texting and stuff, you're so not used to talking on your phone. Like how much do you actually talk on a phone during the day? So there'll be times, especially if I've been on for a little while, that I'll be like, there's my keys, there's my wallet, where's my phone? And you go through like this 15 seconds of panic, and then you're like, oh, there.
Do you ever ride with somebody somewhere and you think you've lost your keys? I do that a lot.
Because you didn't bring your keys?
I drive almost everywhere. Whether I'm with whoever I'm with, I'm usually the driver. So the random time where I won't be the driver, we'll be like out somewhere and I'll like notice I don't have my keys and I'll freak out for like a minute. And then it comes like, it's like I didn't drive.
Well, even when I don't drive, I have my keys.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And that doesn't annoy you.
I'll tell you how bad it is. My ex, like when we went anywhere, and 99% of the time I drove when we were together.
Okay.
But even if she drove, like I got the keys when we were done. But now that we're apart, there are times that we still ride together, depending on if we're going to a kid's event or whatever. So that, like, even if we take her car, she had a minivan and we can fit more people into it, she will, when I'm done, she will let me hold her keys.
Yeah.
Because
it's just something there.
She's like, because you'll just drive me nuts because you'll be pat. So it's just better. Yeah. So yes.
I do that a lot. So if you do have Apple AirTags, just, read into it, see if you feel comfortable
Just
with them.
search for your keys like the rest of us.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit scary. So again, you can find that
Especially,
story.
and let's be honest, for women, it's way scarier than for men.
Sure.
For like as a guy, like it probably isn't a big deal if some dude knows where you're at. Other than the burglary aspect of they're not home. They're just not home.
Did you know that more men go missing than women? I read this somewhere. Now, some of it is, so it's weird. Now, some of it is because men are more likely to be on their own than women. So I know that plays like a part of it. But yeah, I was reading somewhere that actually more men go missing than women.
Did I tell you this story? And I know this has nothing to do with our topics. I read one the other day. This was in the Carolinas. I think it actually covered both states. Some lady and she was 21 and she had a 1-year-old baby and they disappeared like 5 years ago.
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
And they just found them perfectly good and they were, so when you think of all this disappearance and foul play and all this stuff, they found them living in a trailer that was owned by like the father of baby daddy. And they were perfectly good. Someone was there. There was a thing about a weapons, and they went to investigate. And they're like, "Oh, we need your name. What's your name? And what's your name?" They run them through, and they're like, "You people are missing.
Right.
This kid was 1. Now she's 6." And so when you read like this story, my guess would be this young mother and her child, she did not get along with her family nearly as well as she got along with her boyfriend's family. And there was some you choose us or them or whatever, and she went with them because she's living like they weren't being held hostage. They weren't being abused.
Sure.
And she was essentially living in a place that owned by her father-in-law.
All of that dynamic stuff is interesting, but that's not what's fascinating. What's fascinating is when you think about cell phones and tablets and just everything's wired and everything's connected. The fact that she wasn't using anything that would have been able to me, that's the fascinating part.
That's a good point.
Is that if they were really looking for her, like, did she just not use a phone for 3 or 4 years? Like, did she just not have like any type of internet or phone or something that just a bill, like anything that just connected her? That's the way more like, how did she pull that off?
Right. No, I'm with you. I would have never, ever guessed that more men went missing.
I think it has a lot to do with I think it's this idea of like women don't go to the bathroom alone, right? Like women don't hike alone, like all that stuff. Whereas men, like we just take for granted, like, why wouldn't you go hiking alone? Why wouldn't you go?
Well, women are so much more social.
Why not? Well, is that really what it is?
Well, I think it's more common that a man is a loner than a woman.
For me personally, I remember there being moments in college where like I would just walk through alleys, like just shortcut it, walk through an alley.
Yeah.
And I remember like one of the first times like walking with a group and like 2 or 3 girls would not go down this alley. And then it dawned on me like, oh yeah, if you're a girl, like you don't walk down like a non-lighted street. Like you don't, and like just little things like that. So I don't even know if it's the social aspect as much as it's just like, you just don't do certain things that I just take for granted. Like when you're a college girl, you just don't do that.
Well, okay, so let's take this a step further because now I'm back to Field of Dreams. And what's his name?
Kevin Costner?
The other guy, the black guy.
Okay.
I want to say Morgan Freeman. Darth Vader. James Earl Jones.
Okay.
And he played, I can't remember the character's name, even though Field of Dreams.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
He went missing.
Okay.
Because he was a single guy who went on a road trip with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a 60-year-old adult. We're going to this cornfield to look for Shoeless Joe Jackson. And his family called and couldn't find him, so they reported him missing.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many of these that they're reported missing, but they're not really missing. It's just like a single guy decided to go, to the beach for the weekend or go to Vegas for the weekend and didn't tell anyone.
Sure.
And then, so that would be interesting to know as well.
I think there's this idea of, obviously with human trafficking, clearly there's
Mann. His last name was Mann. Terrence Mann. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Clearly there's a market for like younger girls and it's disgusting. However, like in a lot of human trafficking, whether it's for slavery or whatever it may be, like a lot of it's just opportunistic. Like, did you find somebody alone? Was there an opportunity to grab them? The stuff. And nobody's more alone than a single male ever. Like they're just more willing to go and do things
That's fair
on their own. So it's just a common misconception that there are more women missing than men, and it's actually the other way around.
And when I read that story about the girl and her mother that went missing for 5 years and were perfectly fine, I wonder, of the people that go missing, what percentage of them want to be missing, and they're trying to get away from people that are either bad to them or, just whatever.
Yeah. Heather says maybe more men go missing because women notice someone isn't around quicker than men do. She might have a point there.
There is, yes, there is something to be said.
For sure. I know you wanted to get into a couple of sports debates. Is there anything in particular that you...
Well, the one I just found fun because it's and I found it on, I think it was on moneywise.com, and it went through, and this is one of the clickbait things that sucks me in. Each NFL franchise and who was the greatest player in the history of their franchise. Okay. And you go through, some are obvious. The Chicago Bears, it was Walter Payton. The Cleveland Browns, it was Jim
Wasn't
Brown.
Gale Sayers?
No, it was not. It was Walter Payton. The New England Patriots was Tom Brady. There's some that just jump right off the page. But the Eagles and the Steelers were interesting because the Eagles was Reggie White. Even though Reggie ended up leaving and going to Green Bay to win a Super Bowl because God told him to go to Green Bay, if you remember that.
Yes.
But for the Steelers, and listen, I'm a Cowboy fan. I hate the Steelers as much as anybody else. There are 10. I mean, when you think of...
You really think there's 10 for the Steelers?
Oh, my God.
You don't think there's an obvious choice for them?
Who do you think the obvious choice? I would love to go through the discussions, but...
Maybe... I always argue with you all the time, like, I hate longevity. Like, I hate, longevity records. But I can't imagine... I just can't imagine that it's not Ben Roethlisberger. I know that's such a simple answer and it's very current, but when you look at the longevity and what was accomplished, I can't imagine someone comes close to it.
When you look at guys like Jack Lambert, who for a quarter century was the face of the Steelers, I think.
But he did. But how long did he play for?
I know, but he played a while. But he was, a guy like Polamalu. Jerome Bettis. They even had offensive linemen like Webster and Pouncey, and defensive linemen, Harrison.
But don't you feel like those, because the names are just as big, if
Hines
not bigger.
Ward.
Then yes, the names are big. I agree. But I feel like when you just start putting numbers by numbers and you start looking at year by year, as great as those things were, the longevity of Roethlisberger just has.
He was around a long time. And he was really good for a long time.
He also touched the ball for them a lot.
Well, yeah, I know. That's unfair. So anyway, now that we've
did I ruin the Steelers one for you?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
And now that we've because the reason too, it's funny because the Steelers in the list was pretty early. And I was intrigued, so I had to scroll through then to find the Eagles. And I haven't given as much thought to the Eagles because I don't know. I think Reggie White was probably the best player to ever wear an Eagles uniform. It's just weird that he left in the middle. And the answer for the Steelers, according to this poll, was Mean Joe Green. And now he has the best commercial. Do you remember the Mean Joe Green Coca-Cola?
I've seen them before.
Oh, that's an all-timer. But really,
who would you have, after you went through the list, who would you have gone with?
I still think it's Jack Lambert.
Okay.
I really, and I mean, Polamalu was such a, even Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is, when you look at his numbers, Antonio Brown's one of the greatest receivers in NFL history. Now he's kind of gone off the reservation a little bit, so people have it has diminished his legacy. But
interesting. I'm just pulling it up here because I'm curious about it.
Maybe the old-time Steeler fans, and Mean Joe Green is one of the greatest nicknames you'll ever have, but maybe he was just way more dominant because he was with Ham and Lambert and L.C. Greenwood, and so I don't know.
he was a 4-time Super Bowl champion, 6-time first-team All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowl. He was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 76. He was the Defensive Rookie of the Year in 74. Looking through this briefly, this is like a 10-second synopsis, so take it with a grain of salt. You could make the argument that his 6-year run from 76 to 82 was probably the peak. His peak might be higher than anybody else's.
And he was a bad man when the Steelers were in their heyday. So I mean, it's not like I don't hear the name and say there's no way in hell. It's just with a franchise like the Steelers, it is such a fascinating debate. Because you can go offense, defense, you can go.
He also made 2 decade teams. He made the 1970 all-decade team, and he made the 1980 all-decade team. Some of that's timing, though.
Yeah,
Some of that's just
what 9 Pro Bowls for a defensive lineman is. But I'm telling the Coca-Cola commercial maybe just put him over the top.
So what did the Eagles win? Is there really even one worth debating?
I don't even know
there?
Who your next. I don't know.
Here's the crazy one for Lambert. Guess how many career interceptions he had?
I would say more than you would think because he never came off the field.
Because I'm asking the question.
Because he never came off the field, I'm going to say 25 to 30.
Yeah, he had 28 career interceptions.
Look at that.
Which is for a linebacker is
right. He just never left.
Ridiculous.
Like he was of that era. The no teeth. There is you should Google this when you're bored. There is a Sports Illustrated cover with him missing his 2 front teeth. He looks like a hockey player. Like he is throwback. And he went to Kent State, 4 dead in Ohio. He might have been on campus when that shooting took place. Because didn't the shooting take place? Maybe it was enough. 70.
I've only heard about it. I've never read about it.
I think it was the early 70s.
Okay.
And Lambert was in his heyday with the Steelers in the late 70s. So he may have even been on campus when that happened. Okay. But anyway.
Interesting.
There you go.
You had one other one. Do you remember what it was? There was one other sports topic.
Oh, I wanted to mention Pennsylvania college basketball. Just doesn't get really. But 2 days ago, Tuesday, Penn State beat Michigan State at home. Mm-hmm. And yesterday, that's why I wore this. Yesterday, Pitt went to Chapel Hill and won. Now, I know North Carolina's not having their greatest year ever, but neither is Pitt. But they shot the lights out in the first half. They made everything they took.
That was both this week, right?
One was Tuesday and one was yesterday. Pitt was yesterday and Penn State was Tuesday.
Do you think in the history of time, Penn State and Pitt have ever beaten UNC and Michigan State?
Not in men's basketball. No.
Probably not.
Maybe in wrestling, maybe in volleyball, something different. But it has been, and neither of the teams are making the tournament. Like it's not this is not something that's flown under the radar. It was just like a funny timing thing. And for whatever reason, Penn State, we were talking about this, they play at 4:00 today at home against Minnesota. Yeah. So anyway, be that as it may.
There was the 2 things that, now that you mentioned college basketball, I told you about the Coach K thing yesterday.
Oh, this is a neat story. You should tell this one.
The report,
even if you don't like basketball, this is a neat story.
Yeah, because this is about like relationships and about like work relationships, right? So Coach K has been along for so long that they have named numerous people as like the coach in waiting. Right. They've done this for almost 2 decades.
It's been a long time.
So multiple people have been the coach in waiting. One of those people was Tommy Amaker. And then Tommy essentially realized this is never going to end, and he left. I don't remember where he was at Michigan for a little while.
Michigan for a little while.
And somewhere else before he ended up at Harvard.
Seton Hall.
Yes.
I don't know which one came first.
I think it was Seton Hall, Michigan, and then Harvard is where he's at now. And he's
been at Harvard for a decade.
Dude, he's had success at Harvard, which is saying something in men's basketball.
Because Princeton was good for a while.
Yes.
Harvard was never good.
Yes, they've been to the tournament like fairly consistently. Like for that program, they've done very, very well.
Well, and anyway, for people who don't know, he was a point guard he played at Duke under Krzyzewski, and he was like a national championship. He was good.
Yes, and so at one point he was the coach in waiting at Duke. He leaves. So I believe they went through 2 or 3 other guys before John Shire was fine. Wojnarowski.
Wojo left. Johnny Dawkins went to Stanford.
There's a whole crew.
Chapel? How did you say his name? Chapel?
Yeah.
He went to Oklahoma for a while, then ODU. They've had a bunch of guys.
Yes. So the coach in waiting at the time was John Shire. it turns out a report's coming out from a book, and I'm forgetting the writer. It's a very like accomplished sports writer. Like this isn't some random guy. He is coming out, and in this book, he is essentially saying that Duke offered the job to Tommy Amaker when Coach K announced that this was going to be his last season, despite the fact that they had, quote unquote, a coach in waiting. Coach K then called Tommy Amaker and essentially said to him, "You cannot take this job." And Tommy Amaker, according to this report, essentially listened to Coach K, but was heartbroken because his coach and mentor and the person he looked up to the most essentially said, like, "I don't want you to coach at Duke. You can't coach at Duke. Like, you're going to throw off the entire dynamic by not being here." Now, the book and the report said that part of this is that if Tommy Amaker would have came in, he was just old enough and he had enough reps. Coach K feels like he wouldn't have had nearly the impact or the say on the program after he left.
Because Amaker's in his 50s and he's been a head Division I coach now for 20 years.
A successful Division I head coach. Whereas now Shire, who is going to take over the job, is 33, 32.
He's young.
He's in his, I believe it's his lower 30s. And essentially, Coach K will still have a thumb over top of the Duke program.
As much of a thumb as he wants.
Yes. And so that was the report yesterday. And I find the whole work dynamic of that fascinating. The idea of, I think letting go is hard. I think nowadays too, because people live so much longer than they did before. Like this idea of what do I do next? What am I going to do with all this time? I totally understand the Coach K side of it. I truly believe I do. But I just can't imagine that Tommy Amaker, like, are we supposed to think that people at Duke don't know what they're doing? Like, if they offered Tommy Amaker the job, they must think highly of him. They must have thought he was capable. They must have thought that he was ready or prepared to do it. And yet one person's just going to decide that, like, that's not enough. Like, all these other people at Duke just don't understand, and they couldn't possibly understand why Tommy Amaker can't have this job. I find the whole thing very, very fascinating.
And it's fascinating. Like, this is a workplace. This is a workplace thing. It's not just about basketball. So here are some of the psychology aspects that I take from it. Don't you think that there's an aspect of people in any business that if they're going to step down and leave or whatever, but they think their way is the best way, and it is very important to them that the next person continue to do it that way. Because if they leave and they're like, this is the way we did it and it worked great, and I'm retiring, and we bring someone else in and they do it differently, but it still works, now it somehow diminishes what I did.
Well, the irony to what you're explaining with this is that Duke doesn't do anything the way they used to do it. Like, in the last 5 years, they've changed the way they recruit. They've changed like the way their roster is constructed. They've changed the way they play. Like, nothing about Duke basketball right now is what Duke basketball was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
And I get that.
That's the irony to what because I agree with you. Like, most times I think that's what it is. But the irony to this is that, like, if Coach K wants to say, like, we have to continue doing the things the way we've done them, well, that's weird, because in the last 5 years, you've essentially scrapped what you did for the first time. And listen, rightfully so. Like, they scrapped it, and they have been really good the last 3 years. So, like, I'm not knocking them for scrapping it. I'm just saying, like, this idea that what he did for 30 years is why they're successful in 2022, I think his willingness to switch up what they used to do in the last 30 years is why they're successful right now.
Don't you also think that it's common for people in sports, in business, in relationships, when so let's start with relationships, because everybody's been there. Even when people break up and it's kind of mutual and there's no ill will, you've been in these breakups where, and as much as you're like, I wish you the best, you don't really wish them the best.
No.
You wish them, I wish you the pretty good.
Yes.
But I don't want the next guy that you date to be like, oh my God, I've never been this happy before.
Right.
And so I think it's just human, and it doesn't make Krzyzewski an evil person. But I think that once he's gone, he does not want Duke to win a national championship in the next 2 or 3 years. Because if that happens, well, it's Duke. Like, they can win without him. They don't need him. So it's, and I'm not saying that he's picking, that he's asking Shire, but if they bring in Tommy Amaker, who's been away from Duke for 30 years, or not that long, 20 years, coached at 3 different programs and been very successful in the Ivy League. If they bring in Tommy Amaker and in 2 years he's in the Final Four, this, I don't, it can't possibly diminish what Coach K's done because he's like a legendary coach, whatever. But in the short term, you know, it's like,
I think what the inside source said about like having your thumb over the program, and I think that's what really plays into it here, is like when Coach K walks through the doors a year from now, is it still like, is there still an aura to it? Is there still like, well, you know, this is Duke, but it's really Coach K, and like, and I think Tommy Amaker was probably more of a threat to that than John Shire.
Probably.
Yes.
And there are, in walks of life, there are lots of places that the people walk away, say, I'm retired, I'm done, I'm passing it on. In basketball, the one that comes to my mind is Lou Carnesecca. You're not even really old enough to
remember Lou Carnesecca.
At St. John's.
Yep.
And he was just a cheerleader. Yep. And he would show up, sit behind the bench and cheer, but he was just kind of like, and it's hard, but it's hard for a lot, especially if you put, you know, Duke basketball has been Krzyzewski's life for 40 years.
Absolutely.
So then to just be like, hey, let's move on. Like, I kind of want to move on, but I don't want to move on.
Well, the interesting thing is like having a say in it, like, because I can't shake the idea of whether basketball, business, family, whatever it is, I can't shake the idea that there must be something about Duke that he loves and trusts, right? Like, there must be the people that offered or wanted to offer Tommy Amaker this job. He must know them, right? He must at some point trust them, right? He must know that they want what's best for Duke basketball. And for him to just kind of like, you're so wrong about this. You're so wrong to the point that I'm going to call Tommy Amaker and tell him he can't take this job.
And don't you think
that part fascinates me?
Don't you think, though, that it's understandable that he could say, as much as you think you know what's best for Duke basketball, nobody knows what's better for Duke basketball than me.
I can see why he thinks that.
Yes, I can too.
But again, it comes back to the idea of, you announce that you're ready to go. Like he says, like, in a year, I am done. And when you do that, aren't you kind of saying like, I built this up, here you go, like, let's do it. And he very clearly, based off of this report that's going to come out, like, that's not how he felt about it. Let me put it to you this way. Right now, I could make the statement that he does not trust Duke with the Duke basketball program. And I think I'm making a very fair statement.
Oh, absolutely. Well, how about this? If you're Duke, aren't you just now, like, you're embarrassed? Because
you would think.
Because the guy that we picked, that the powers that be, the guy that we picked, and he's not unqualified. He's a Duke alum.
Super qualified.
He played at Duke.
Yeah.
He's been successful at a nerd school too.
Yeah.
He wasn't successful at, Arkansas.
Right.
He was successful at Harvard.
Yeah.
And the kids in life, the kids that are applying to Duke are also applying to Harvard.
Sure.
So he's eminently qualified. This is the guy we select. And now our coach goes and poo-poos who we select.
Right.
And now we've got to backtrack. Like it almost, they're wishing it would have been done quietly, that this didn't come out. They're like, well, what do you think about Amaker? Well, let's not go with Amaker. Let's give Shire a shot. Okay. At least then it's done privately.
Sure.
Because right now Duke has egg on its face. It's like, this is very reminiscent of when the trustees went to Paterno's house in 2004 or whatever and said, we'd like you to step down. And he threw him out of the house and said, I'm not quitting. And he didn't quit.
Yeah.
He showed that he was bigger than Penn State.
Right.
And they wanted to fire the football coach. Well, they didn't want to fire him. They wanted him to retire. Right. He said, I'm staying as long as I want to stay.
Right.
And Krzyzewski, they're like, we want to select a coach. And Krzyzewski's like, you're not selecting the coach. I will select the coach.
Yeah.
And Duke's like, okay.
I find that very
It is fascinating. And like, it's not like Duke is some little dinky, this didn't happen at Bloomsburg.
But this
happened at Duke.
But this is what's interesting, and like we're kind of coming like it. You can feel it kind of shifting in culture, like even in a lot of industries, like music and business, and especially sports. There was this period of time where just like the coach was just like the institution. Like it's just and like we're just moving to a point where I think what we're beginning to realize now, because like these guys have been at these colleges for 30, 40 years. And what we're beginning to realize is like Syracuse is on the front of the jersey. Like Duke is on the front of the jersey. And these universities and institutions are far going to outlast the coaches that are. And so how do you balance that idea of they helped build this fascinating thing, but at the same time, like you're an institution and you're trying to do what you believe is best for the longevity of the institution, and trying to balance those two things, whether it's Duke basketball, Syracuse basketball is going to go through it very, very, they kind of already have, because Boeheim kind of had like 1 foot out, then he was back in, and it was like, so like a lot of these places are going to be going through that, and it's spreading out. Like you see it with CEOs, you see it with music labels, like all this stuff now of like, when this one person who kind of like commandeered everything and moved everything forward, and once that person it's time for them to move on or to go, how do you negotiate that? How do you handle that? I think like for the first time ever, we're seeing like multiple cases of that across everything.
And everyone will learn from this. When Izzo steps down at Michigan State, they're going to be like, listen, we're all going to be on the same page, and this ain't coming out in the public that we've been this dysfunctional.
Sure.
And so, yes, there are lots of other schools right now that are saying this is never going to happen to us.
But it's funny though, because you say like, I agree with you. They don't want to be dysfunctional, right? 100%. But now with social media and all this, just how easily it is to just say your piece. Because back in like 30 years ago, like if a coach said this or an AD said that or whatever, I mean, you could probably get away with it and no one would ever find out.
But this is a book, isn't it?
This is a book that's
this isn't social media. This is a book.
No, but the point I'm making is like, let's say next year Syracuse tries to push Boeheim out, and they're like, listen, we've done this. You've had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We've gone through this. Like, we're done. I mean, Boeheim's one tweet away from Syracuse just having an entire storm like on their door. People saying about time, people saying, how could you? Like and
they would say both.
Yeah. And the crazy part is kind of, so when you say like, who has the power? If you're an institution, you're one tweet away from this person and it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. It doesn't matter if it's time or not. It's just one tweet and it's kind of all out there and done. And
to take it one step further with the psychology of it, because the normal schmuck like us, who make up, there's, tens of thousands of normal schmucks that make up the fan base.
Sure.
And when you take those, half of those people are petrified of change.
Sure.
In any aspect of life, whether they're in a miserable job that they're afraid to leave just because they're used to it, they're in a miserable relationship that they're afraid to leave because they're afraid to be on their own, whatever the case may be, there are lots of people in society that are petrified of change. And that's why they're Syracuse fans. There were Penn State fans. There are all these people like, we won't, how do we go without Boeheim? I'm so scared that the next coach won't even be able to draw on a clipboard.
Yeah.
So, and it is.
Do you think Boeheim draws up the 2-3 on the clipboard?
No. He did.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure they had to.
But now it's. No, now he texts it to them on their iPad.
I was going to say, he's probably have the iPad.
When does that happen? When do we get to the point in timeouts in basketball where guys come to the bench, they reach under their chair, they pull out the iPad, and they're watching replays?
It's happening.
Oh, they do it already? Football, they do it all the time.
Yeah, basketball,
but football, the offense has a long time. Basketball,
if you watch an NBA game, there are guys that have the iPad in front of them, and they're watching it on like a 3-second delay. So if something happens on the court, they can quickly pause it, play it, and they can run it back real quick and see it again. I mean, it's already happening.
But are they using them at timeouts?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
They're using them for challenges, for timeouts, for drawing up plays. I mean, it's like it's here. It's already there.
I remember, and you're not that old, so you remember this, when they used to send Polaroids down for NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they used to like send them down the wire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then and they'd be sitting there flipping through Polaroids.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yes,
I had one of the first when I was a water boy. I was probably 2nd or 3rd grade. One of the first coaches that I was ever a water boy for, he used to keep a piece of chalk in his pants pocket, and he would draw on the floor because the out of bounds was blue. So he would just get down on a knee and he would just start drawing on the floor with a piece of chalk. And I've always just kind of chuckled at that because I think to myself, like, now we've got these boards and we've got these tablets and it's like all this. And like, yeah, the first guy I ever waterboyed for, piece of chalk right onto the gym floor. And then he would just scuff it when he was done.
You know what I was just thinking when you said that?
What's that?
Our out of bounds is blue.
You could do it.
I could do that.
You could break it out and do it.
I could do that. It's like drawing plays in the dirt, in the sand lot.
That's
you run down to the bottle cap and turn left.
Exactly what it's like.
That is
so there'd be no like whiteboard, no marker, no nothing. He would just keep that piece of chalk in his pocket, and that was his.
And I know I've showed you this. Have you seen when I'm thinking of little Jeff the water boy?
Yeah.
Have you seen JT Snow running home in the playoffs and picking up Dusty Baker's kid, the bat boy?
Yes, yeah, I have.
One of the great. If just Google JT Snow and Dusty Baker's kid.
Saved his life.
He's about 5, and he was the bat boy in the World Series. And like guys are running around, and this little kid goes running up to get the bat. And JT Snow, who you could tell he was a dad, he scooped this little kid up as he's running across home plate.
And it's one of those things where like he didn't save his life, but he kind of saved his life.
Awesome. Like it's scary, but it's awesome at the same time. And like, as a parent, you've all everyone said JT probably wasn't even phased. He's probably like, here, Dusty, here's your kid.
Sure.
But yes, Google that if you've never seen it. I think it was in the World Series. It wasn't just a game.
No,
it was big.
Yeah, stadium was packed.
So anyway,
before we leave today, I just want to say happy birthday to my dad. He's people joke about like their dad's this or dad's that, and so it's corny to say their dad is the best. So I won't say that just because I know everybody's dad is the best.
And because you know I'm the best. Yeah, so how can your dad be the best?
Everybody's dad is the best. I will say, though, my dad is one of the just sincerest, nicest, happy-go-lucky people. And he sincerely love you, happy, so thankful that he is my dad. And yes, he is one of the good ones.
I like your effort. Of their 2 children, you still rank number 2.
Oh, 100%.
In the order of that they love?
100%.
Your sister outranks you. I've still never met her, but I can tell.
She is the natural. And no, don't get me wrong. Like everybody has their roller coaster of life, but things just tend to naturally. She has a natural inclination for things, as I'm more of like the work in progress.
Did I ever tell you this? When Mike first started in Baltimore, Cal Ripken was there, obviously, but Billy Ripken was there.
Yeah.
And their mom used to come all the time. And Cal Sr. was on the coaching staff a lot.
Yeah.
But you can tell Mama Ripken loved baseball because she was there like way more. And she could watch it on TV, but she was there.
Mm-hmm.
And she would get way more animated when Billy did something well.
Okay.
Than when Cal did something well.
Okay.
And I remember one time, I think it was my mom that asked her. And she said something like, Cal has lots of people that root for him. I have to root for Billy.
Sure.
But it was like, if Billy got a hit, like you're cheering, Cal hits a double in the gap. She's like, oh, Cal hit no double. It was really funny. But so that's probably how it is with you. Like, my parents here, and then they root for you because they know your sister's just better.
I think my parents are very socially aware of like my sister's place and my place and what she needs versus what I need.
Believe me, my parents are aware of it too.
Yes, and it's funny.
There's a pecking order in our house too.
Sure, no doubt. So it is funny that it's how parents can pick up on, what the other one needs versus the other, and it's very interesting. That was dynamic.
Yeah, so happy birthday to Big Jeff.
Yes, happy birthday. Thank you for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weiss Markets for being our sponsor. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news.
That's it. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you tomorrow.